the meeting to order for the Board of Supervisors this morning. May I have a roll call, please?
Supervisor Giomi,
Here.
Supervisor White,
Here.
Supervisor Jones,
Here.
Supervisor Schutte,
Here.
Mayor Bagwell.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you so much. We have our invocation this morning. Is Bruce Henderson? Yes, he is. Good morning. Would you lead us?
Let us pray. Our Father, we have just celebrated the founding of our nation, and we thank you for that. In just a few moments, we're going to be reciting the words of the Pledge of Allegiance to our flag. There's struggles and there's difficulties in our nation, Lord. And yet we use the words, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. So we pray today for our nation. We pray for our president, the legislature, the court system. We pray for our great city of Carson City. We pray for Mayor Lori, for this Board of Supervisors, for our court system. We pray for our first responders, and of course we pray, Father, for our governor. And we would ask indeed that you be with us, that we indeed remain one nation under God, indivisible. We thank you, we praise you, in your precious and holy name. Amen.
Amen. Thank you so much for those words. We really appreciate it. Miss Punches, would you do us the honor of leading us in the pledge? Caroline, yeah.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you so much. Okay, we're now on to public comment. I do want to let you know on our agenda, we have item 11A that has a time-specific minimum of 8:45 that we put in a resolution for Northgate. So I will take the public comment and our special presentations, potentially the consent agenda. We'll play it by ear, but we will take that item as close as we can to the 8:45 noticing, just to put that out there. Okay, so I have for public comment, Dave Whitfield. You want to talk to us?
Good morning. My name is Dave Whitefield. I'm a resident of Ward 1. Thank you, Madam Mayor and Supervisors, for all you do to make me proud to call Carson City my home. I'm here to support the approval of agenda item 16A. I'm sorry that I have some commitments later that don't allow me to stay for that, but appreciate the opportunity to speak to that. I've served on the Parks and Rec Advisory Commission for several years now. The comments I offer today reflect my own views, not those of the commission. Tennis is a great sport enjoyed by many local players who have no good options to play here in Carson City because of the poor condition of the courts at Centennial Park and the neighborhood parks. During my tenure on the advisory commission, I've heard from many local players who have to go to surrounding areas to play because of the unsafe conditions on our local courts. I've advocated for repairs, but budget constraints have so far prevented any real progress. I believe it is well past time to devote precious resources to provide safe courts for our local tennis players. Over the past several years, and Lori, you're aware of this, I've been actively involved in converting 2 of the old tennis courts at Mills Park into 8 pickleball courts. When we were allowed to do this conversion, the tennis community was very gracious in supporting our efforts. and was promised that the courts at Roscoe would be refurbished in order to keep from having dual striping for tennis and pickleball on the same courts. I think we should keep that promise and allocate the necessary funds to proceed with the Roscoe tennis court renovations. I get a number of calls every week from people asking to play tennis at the Mills Park pickleball courts. Unfortunately, I have to tell them the only options I know of are the courts that are in poor repair at Centennial Park. With your indulgence, I want to digress a little bit to try to illustrate what I think the importance of these facilities are to our community. This is a personal story about the major impact the sport of tennis has had on my life. I started playing tennis when I was 10 years old. I spent countless hours playing on public courts in the small towns that I grew up in. These hours not only kept me out of trouble, they allowed me to develop into a pretty decent tennis player. By the time I graduated from high school, I was good enough to earn a tennis scholarship to a major university. There, I earned a degree in engineering. That led to a rewarding career as a professional engineer, spanning 40-plus years. It also provided a decent standard of living for my family and allowed me to make positive contributions to the communities where I lived and worked. I was also able to continue to enjoy the sport I loved for many years. Now,
Excuse me, David, I'm so sorry, but your 3 minutes is up, but would you submit those?
I will, I'm almost done. About
Like
2 seconds?
Okay,
Yep.
seconds.
Every kid who plays on our public tennis courts may not be as fortunate as I've been, but they will learn valuable lessons that have stayed with me my whole life. The value of competition, hard work, perseverance, fair play, and good sportsmanship. These are important lessons in the development of good citizens. I appeal to each of you individually to make funding of these resources a high priority. These are important investments in the physical and mental health of our citizens and in the future of our community. Thank you for your time and consideration, and thanks for allowing me the extra
Thank you
time.
so much. Next on the list, I have Molly Walt.
Good morning. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak. Molly Walt, CEO of Nevada Rural County's RSVP program. I just wanted to let everybody know that the senior farmer market coupons are here and will be distributed tomorrow in the lobby of the community center from 9 to 12 p.m., 9 a.m. to 12 p.m. Eligibility requirements for the coupons: you must be a Carson City resident, 60 years of age or older, must bring a driver's license or some source of information to verify your home address, such as a utility bill. One coupon book per household. The household income at or below the 185% of the poverty income guidelines. So for one senior, the income is $22,459 per year. For seniors, two seniors in a household, it's $30,451 per year. If you're unable to attend tomorrow's distribution, you can come to our office at 2621 Northgate Lane, Suite 6, starting Monday to get the coupon book. However, they will also be available at the farmers market at their information booth as well. So I encourage all seniors 60 and older that meet the guidelines of the household income to come and get their farmers market coupons. It's a value of $45 for those coupon books. It can be used for Nevada farmers and out-of-state farmers as well. Thank you.
So much. Janice, I have you noted on item specific.
Yeah.
So I'll call you during the item then.
No, I wanted to do it now.
Oh, you want to do it now? I'm sorry, you marked that you wanted
Oh.
to do it at the
Sorry,
item.
this is the first time.
That's okay. That's a good thing I called it out. There you go. Okay, go ahead, Janice. No problem.
I'm Janice Caldwell. I too am a member of the Parks and Rec Commission, and I'm here to speak in favor of agenda item 16A and B. As Dave said, we have lots of constituents who want to play tennis safely on a decent court. The truth is, there's just a couple of courts that are playable at Centennial, and of course, Roscoe is not playable. And the ones that are at Mills, closest to the aquatic center, apparently
can't be used by anybody for anything. For 3 years, we have been waiting for approval for Ross Gold's repair. And I guess our patience is running out a little bit. But be that as it may, I hope that we can get the support of this board to move money from the pavilion to the court repair, which is way overdue, and provide the opportunity for exercise the way Dave laid it out so well. And also to accept the contract in Agenda B that we have in hand. Hopefully, they won't renege on that one, and we can get this show on the road. Thank you very much for your attention.
Janice, may I ask you a question, just as the Park Commission and general public? Do you think the tennis courts are of higher priority than the shade structure?
I'm
I think
afraid
that's
I do.
really the nutshell of the issue,
Yes.
right?
I'm
Let's
afraid
get down to what
I do, because we have been doing without
for so long.
for so long, and we've had promises on and off and everything, and it's just time to deliver.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you
Thank
very
I
much.
appreciate it. Anybody else? Okay, thank you. Mr. Schultz, I have you next to public comment. Anybody else have any?
Good morning, Mayor and Supervisors. Darren Schultz, Public Works Director for the record. So it's construction season, which won't surprise anybody. We just wanted to get on the record and mention that we have a pretty major closure next week, Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, 11th, 12th, and 13th. East 5th Street between Solomon and Airport Road will be completely closed for those 3 days. The thought process is that it will be open at night when construction is done to allow passage back and forth. And the reason for this is because of the Lampa Ranch project that's being done to the north of there, doing a number of utility tie-ins into that street right away. So the thought process, it'll be totally closed for 3 days. And then after that, it will be open on temporary patching. And eventually we'll come back and do the permanent patching, but it will not be a full closure at that point. We think it can be down to 1 lane. So we'll report back on that. But Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, next week, that road will be completely closed and have to either go to Fairview or 50 to get back around.
So
Thank you.
just to be clear on the record for everyone that lives in that area, the roundabout will be open, so you will not have to utilize Deer Run Road to go all the way around, which I think had everyone in fear factor that we were gonna go the other way. So just so everyone knows, you may use the roundabout. Okay.
How are you going to manage access to Warm Springs Correctional Center and Nevada State Prison?
So I'll look into that. I think arrangements have been made that they'll be able to go through to access it, but I'll make sure that they have access.
Okay.
I don't have that right now, but I'll make sure they have access.
The Nevada State Prison Preservation Society has not been noticed that Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday could be a problem.
Okay, we'll get right on that.
All right,
Thanks for the heads up.
thank you.
Thank you so much. I don't see anyone else that signed in. Danny?
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor. I'm a little nervous, so I didn't. Anyhow, Mayor, Board of Supervisors, and staff. Denny French, Carson City, Nevada. This is relating to electric cars and charging stations. I just ran over some information. A small size sedan Mitsubishi is 2,645 pounds. A mid to large Toyota SUV electric 4,464 pounds. A van would be 6,225 pounds. Relating to gas vehicle, a similar size sedan would be 2,140 pounds. A mid-size, 2,140. A Mercedes-Benz Classic would be 3,100 pounds. It shows a change in weights between the two is quite significant. And they use the roads, but right now there is no alternate tax for electric vehicles. And I suggest, as does Nevada does not currently have an alternative for the gas tax for electric vehicles. However, the Governor's Office of Energy has proposed registration fees as a stopgap for road use fees to release. I am also personally opposed to putting charging centers on city property. I feel that we should encourage the manufacturers to work with communities, businesses to find places to put their charging centers so that parking spaces on our parks and different things are not filled with people waiting 4 hours for their vehicles to be charged. I really appreciate the fact that electric cars are the in thing and are the way to go, but they are still wearing our roads out, and as everybody knows, our roads are in pretty bad shape. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you. Okay, last call if there's any other general public comment. Okay. It is at the time specific notified, so we are going to go to agenda item 11A, which is possible action for discussion on the disposal of our city-owned land, otherwise known as Northgate Lane. Supervisor Giomi, may I have your disclosure, please?
Yes, ma'am. NRS 281A420 requires me to disclose a conflict of interest and abstain from voting when I have disqualifying conflict. In my private commitment, I serve as volunteer board member on RSVP as well as Advocates to End Domestic Violence, both of which are nonprofit organizations in the community. RSVP is currently a tenant at the Northgate property. In my private commitment, I have a fiduciary duty to both organizations because the judgment of a reasonable person in my position would be materially affected by my existing relationships with both RSVP and Advocates to End Domestic Violence. I have disqualifying conflict and will not be voting on this matter.
Thank you so much. I don't have anyone else noted as a disclosure, so I'll move on to who wants to start this.
Good morning, Mayor, members of the board. Robert Nellis, real property manager for the record. Just wanted to disclose that as of 5 p.m. yesterday, we did not receive any written bids on the property. So at this time, the board may wish to move forward with some alternative means of disposal or take no action, but it's really up to the board at this point.
Okay. So just to be clear for the record, so because we had no written bids, we cannot accept any oral bids, correct?
I don't know if that's legally true or not. I'll let Adam.
Let's put that on the record.
Sure.
Thank you.
As written in the resolution, that's accurate.
Okay, so what I'd like to do is, I have understanding that there's some in the public that may wish to shed some light on processes or options that the board may like to consider. So is there any public comment on this? Ms. McKenzie, come on up. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, members of the board. I'm representative for the Hop and May Adams Foundation, and we are definitely interested in assisting the city and the nonprofits involved in this process. Unfortunately, while we are a nonprofit and a 501c3, we aren't a Chapter 82 501c3, so we couldn't qualify for the bid. With that, we would be very open to working with the city to figure out how to do this transfer so Hop and May Adams Foundation could purchase it, do significant improvements. We've already talked to the current tenants and we'd like to help them out too, and it falls within our realm of operation as the Hop and May Adams Foundation. So if there's an opportunity to pursue it along those routes, if it's through another resolution, if it's through direct negotiations, we're happy to and available to try to work this out and help everybody involved.
So I just, again, want to clarify on the record that you're indicating that the Hop and May Adams is aware of the minimum bid requirements and the statutory requirements if we were to direct staff to work with you.
Yes.
Okay, I
and
just
we
want to make sure. I don't want to go down a road and we have to start again in 6 months because everyone wasn't clear
No,
path?
absolutely. It was just
Okay.
the way the resolution was, we just didn't fall within the parameters, and so we
Right, the
couldn't.
1 year.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
for the district attorney's office, we had in the resolution that the nonprofit status needed to be for 1 year. If we direct staff to work with Hop and May Adams, it would not have to have that 1 year requirement.
Yeah, sorry, and this.
I just want to get it on the
Adam
record.
Tully, Deputy District Attorney. Yeah, that's correct. The resolution was stricter than the statute that we would transfer under. So there's room to finagle and make a transaction with the Hop and May Adams Foundation work.
Okay, all right, I just wanted to put that on the record. Does anybody else have any questions? Sorry, Mr. Giomi cannot participate in this one. It's a reminder he's an abstention. Any other questions from members of the board?
Oh, no question, just a comment that I think it's pretty important that we all find a way to work towards, yes, make this happen.
I think that's good statement. Anybody else? Do I have, oh,
May I ask one follow-up question?
absolutely.
Is there still a desire to have a requirement that it be a Chapter 82 nonprofit, or can we just do it under the Hop and May current umbrella? Is that a possibility of, it's still a nonprofit, it's still a 501c3, technically it's the same thing, it just.
I think
not-
those details can be worked out with the district attorney's office, and they
Okay.
can look through the statutory language with you and find the best path
Okay,
to accommodate that. And that's really why I want it on the record. If that makes sense, if we choose to direct staff, they'll open up that negotiation directly with you guys and follow right through the law.
wonderful. We look forward to working with everybody. Thank you.
If that works. Thank you so much.
Thank
I
you.
think there was someone else I saw raise their hand for public comment. Anybody else on this item? No? Okay, board, what is your pleasure then? Supervisor Shooty?
I move to instruct staff to continue to pursue disposal of the Northgate property under NRS 244.284 for a minimum price of $385,000 with the Hop and May Adams Foundation.
Second.
I have a motion and a second for staff to directly negotiate with the Hop and May Adams Foundation. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any no, say no, and let the record reflect one abstention. So it's 4 yeses and 1 abstention. Thank you so very much for willing to work with everyone. Thank you. We're going to get this done. Sometimes by a little harder path, but we're going to get there. Thank you. Okay, now let's go backwards. We are now on our special presentation, agenda item 7, which is our proclamation recognizing Parks and Recreation Month. Uh-oh, I need glasses. That's really, I'm going to start making proclamations at 24 point, just so I can read them. I still might not have glasses. There's some. Okay. Do you all want to join me? Oh, yeah, I'll go backwards. I was trying to get the people out and then I'll come back because we had to go out of order, but thank you. I just want to get the special presentation and then we'll come back on minutes. And then get back on the standard agenda. Just wanna move out the group. You guys coming down? Not that I want you to get back to work or anything, but you know, there's a little bit of that. Okay, there, Stacy's big now on the screen, so he's a part of this. He's not a thumbnail anymore. You got your team up? Come on. Look at this. This is a crew to draw to, huh? Check this out. This is exciting. Woohoo! Wow. Check it out. Oh, too bad. Well, if we did this right, we'd move and he'd be in the picture. Let's put Stacy in the picture just for a little fun. We have another screen. So there you go. Just make sure when we take the photo, we leave enough room. Is that called photo bombing? That's what I heard. The guy in the back is Stacy. All right, here we go. Yeah, see, I just thought, oh, he's here. I want everyone to know. Okay, whereas Parks and Recreation are an integral part of communities throughout this country, including Carson City. And whereas Carson City's Park, Recreation, and Open Space Department mission is to provide exceptional parks, open space, and diverse recreational opportunities to enhance the quality of life in Carson City while preserving our natural resources for future generations. Whereas Carson City has more parks per capita than the national average, the city's park system consists of over 8,000 acres, providing recreation opportunities that build a healthy, active community, which aids in the prevention of chronic disease, provides therapeutic recreation services for individuals of all abilities, and improves the mental and emotional health of its citizens. And whereas Carson City's Park and Recreations facility enhanced the community's economic vitality by increasing property values while promoting tourism, the attraction and retention of businesses, and crime reduction. Whereas Carson City is honored to be a Tree City USA and the first Bee City USA in Nevada. I think we're number 76. I somehow remember this. Nationwide? Oh, yeah. Number 76 nationwide, though, right? That's pretty good. Pretty darn good. Whereas the U.S. House of Representatives and the National Recreation and Parks Association have designated July as Parks and Recreation Month and called upon communities throughout the country to recognize the importance of parks, plural, and recreation. Now, therefore, I, Lori Bagwell, Mayor of Carson City, on behalf of the Board of Supervisors, do hereby proclaim July 2022 as Parks and Recreation Month in Carson City. And I urge all residents to spend time in their favorite parks and enjoy this beautiful region we call home. And just as a celebration, on July 16th, come on over to Mayor's Park. I'll let staff tell you of a few little things they have planned there. Mayor Maseko provided some funding for Mayor's Park for new benches and things of that nature. So help us celebrate in July. Anybody want to say something for parks?
Thank you so much, Mayor. Jennifer Budge, Parks and Recreation Director. I just want to take a quick moment to thank the staff because we wouldn't have all the great parks that we do in the programs without all their hard work. And this is only a portion of their staff. Everyone else is out in the field working really hard. And as far as the Mayor's Park event, it's in 2 weeks. 10 o'clock on Saturday. We have a junior ranger program. We have some activities for adults and an opportunity to thank Mayor Maseko for his generous donation for the contributions to the park. So thank you.
Isn't this pretty phenomenal? I'm pretty excited. I know, I started on the park commission, so I'm a lot biased, but anyway, let's get the proclamation in here and get a good photo. And we've got just enough room for Stacy to be included in our staff is over there. There you go. Thank you all so very much. Thank you so much for having us. Thank you. Very appreciated. Endorsement for you. No more money, huh? And I've got one for you to build. The same thing. And the sheriff said if we're a little bit short. I do just on the record again want to thank all of those donors in our community. We just had another little, well, actually a sizable check for over $1,000 for all of those that contributed to the improvements at Lone Mountain Cemetery. So I was pleased to just provide some more. This board contributed toward the tree that we did, but I think you're going to see brand new signage at our cemetery. So this is super exciting. And again, just want to thank all those in the public and all the banks and everyone that are helping us with writing checks. So thank you. All right, we will now go to agenda item number 6, which is approval of our minutes of June 2nd and June 24th, because we had the special meeting. Did any members have any corrections or anything? I didn't see any. Then I'll take a motion. Supervisor White?
I move to approve the minutes of June 2, 2022 and June 24, 2022.
Second.
I have a motion and a second for the approval of the minutes. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Okay, let the record reflect that was unanimous. I heard Supervisor Giomi. Okay, we're now going to move to the consent agenda. Does any member want any item pulled for further discussion? I don't see any. Then I will accept a motion for the approval of the consent agenda.
I'm happy to do that, Mayor. I move to approve the consent agenda consisting of item 8A, 8B, resolution number 2022-R23, 9A, 9B, 9C, 9D, 9E, 9F, 9G, 9H, 9I, 9J, and 9K is presented.
Do I have a second?
I second.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say no. Okay, there we go. Let the record reflect that was a unanimous vote. Thank you so much, Supervisor Giomi. We're showing you all how this technology can work. So don't make me wrong and have them pop out earlier. Okay, so we have nothing for agenda item number 10 as nothing was pulled. We've already done agenda item number 11. So we are now on agenda item 12A, which is discussion and possible action regarding the canvass of the recount of the vote for the June 14th, 2022 primary reelection. Clerk Rolette. She's right there. You're quick. I'm like, she was there. Go.
I jumped seats on you, Mayor. Good morning. Thank you, City Manager and DA's office for helping me get this on the agenda today so we didn't have to come back to do this. On June 30th, this month has gone by fast, we did a recount as demanded by candidate Joey Gilbert. It took a day and a half. We were pleasantly surprised that it didn't go through the holiday weekend. We were able to, again, Carson City's election workers really stepped up. They came out on that Thursday, Friday of the holiday weekend and helped us. We were able to get about 14 people so we could have bipartisan teams to help us with that recount. As presented, there was one discrepancy that did not change the outcome of the gubernatorial race for the June 14th, 2022 primary. If you have any questions, I'm here.
Does anybody have a question? Seeing none, Supervisor White, are you ready for a motion?
I am.
Go ahead.
Thank you so much for your hard work, your volunteers, and the people that you have to bring in to do all this kind of stuff. I move to accept the canvass of the recount of the vote for the primary election held on June 14, 2022.
I have a motion and a second for approval. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Let the record reflect the motion passed unanimously. Thank you again, and all of the staff, and I think probably volunteers on top of it, right? Thank you all that are in the room. I saw Todd earlier, but if there was anyone else that worked on our elections, and Miguel, thank you. Truly, truly appreciated. Okay, we're going to move on to agenda item 13A, which is presentation of the biannual report on the Carson City jail conditions and information if we had any deaths of prisoners within the jail. I see Mr. Mays and Mr. Sheriff. So who would like to go first?
I'd like to go first.
Okay.
Good morning. For the last 6 months, we've had no deaths in our jail, which has been a very positive thing. The current state of our jail is pretty much status quo. We really don't have much construction going on currently at this time. We are waiting for our new padded cell to be built inside. And Public Works is going to continue refurbishing a lot of our floors within our pods. So that's probably going to be towards the end of the year. And currently, the only project right now is still our camera system. And currently, they are redoing the roof portions of the jail.
Oh, can I ask, we had a project a year and a half ago. I just want to, for the record, indicate that, is that one completed on the back exit? The trash receptacle exit, maybe is a good way to say it?
Unfortunately, no, it's
Oh.
not.
That's not what I was expecting to hear. Oh, okay. More
I
complex.
hate to report, it hasn't even been started.
Okay.
The fence has not gone up and the alarm on the back gate door has not been installed. I believe the alarm has been ordered and has been received, however, not installed. And from what I have been told, the fencing is back ordered because of the steel issues and so forth from the manufacturer. So that's what we're waiting for.
So there's nothing on the staff side of the issue, it's just the supply chain.
That'd be correct.
Okay, we just want to note, again, when we have outstanding items, I just want to know where we're at on them, so thank you so much. Okay, some more for us?
That's all I have.
And Ms. Mayor and Board, especially for the public, board members and the mayor do visit the detention center on a quarterly basis. We just want to remind everybody of that fact that this board does pay attention to the circumstances of the jail, the health of the inmates and such. And I want to give our medical staff in the jail, medical and psych folks in there, a good pat on the back because they really strongly do attend to the welfare of those inmates.
Definitely. And do you want to talk about other items in your report?
No, ma'am.
No? I really appreciate it, though. I want, again, just on the record, it's always interesting to see the statistics and like you said, what's really going on in our community by the gross numbers. Obviously, it doesn't tell you the minutia, but it certainly tells you as an overall indicators how we're doing in the community. And so please thank all of your staff. Mr. Sheriff, I kind of liked that. But please thank them all for their good work, and we really appreciate them. So, is anybody else? Supervisor Schutte?
Yeah, and I would like to second the kudos. You know, I plan on I'd like to do another walkthrough. But when the last walkthrough I went through, I was just really impressed. You know, the work of the jail staff and the medical staff and all of the support staff, it is a big undertaking. There are so many different needs of the inmates. And, you know, they come to the situation of being incarcerated for many different reasons. And, you know, so detention staff and medical staff, they just, you all you wear many hats. And in tough situations and circumstances and limited staffing, you really do an incredible job. And please know that you're appreciated. And I left that day so impressed and so grateful. And so just kudos.
So actually, I did have one question. I forgot. When I look at the statistics, one of them in there that kind of jumps out a little bit to me is it indicates the number of medical requests. Okay, and yet then it shows medical scene type issue, and there's a gap. Is that because they get out of jail before
There's a-
their medical is arranged?
Yes, there's a couple of different circumstances. So when someone puts in a request for medical, it's based on severity and the priority of that medical request versus somebody that has a hangnail. So they prioritize most of the medicals, or actually they prioritize all the medical requests, and then some get out and or their symptom or whatever goes away and they don't need to see medical anymore.
So there's nothing of alarm that this board should be
There's
apprised of
nothing
or
of an alarm.
concerned
In
about?
fact, we have system embedded into the sheriff's office. Should that number or that percentage ratio go out of whack, it would automatically signal an incident to look at.
Perfect. Just what I wanted to hear. Thank you. Anybody else? Okay.
I
Oh,
think
go
one
ahead,
of the,
Mr.
one of the things that's not reflected in the statistics is the number of people we don't put in jail. Through the number of people we don't put in jail, through all the mental health efforts that we're doing with most, and I know FAST doesn't come into play until they're in jail, but I think that mitigates some of the population as well. And I think we need to recognize those folks as being very instrumental in how the jail is actually operated.
You're absolutely correct. The most program, that's our mobile outreach program, which is now staffed with 2 full teams. Those have a tremendous impact on our jails and our emergency rooms, treating people hopefully in their home environments versus in jails and in ERs. That has a very, very strong impact. Those diversion type activities have been in place in Carson City for decades. Your other courts, support
health
court
coordinator.
functions that go on with the district attorney's office and such. These are all steps that Carson City has long been taking, recognizing that jails and ERs pile up with people very often in unwarranted reasons.
Okay. Is there any public comment on this item? We don't have an action on it. Denny?
Thank you very much, Denny French, Carson City. It's more of a question because you put into the, you passed up 9J because you put it in the one section, and 9J related to the mental health aspects, and it's, had
Dr.
that been.
Joe?
Yes. Was that then passed? I'm not understanding the process there. It was,
He's an ongoing contract that we do to provide services within the jail.
similar
And
to
so
Mary.
this is just his update to his
Okay,
contract.
and so it was approved?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Yeah, Dr. Joe is part of that FAST team that works into the specialty courts.
Right. Gomi, I'm sorry, Supervisor Gomi went through what was going on to the consent thing quicker than I could keep up, so thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Any other public comment before I close this item? Okay, then we're going to move on to agenda item 13B, which is, thank you very much for all the good work at the jail. Thank you. Discussion and possible action regarding the proposed revisions to the 9/11 surcharge master plan for fiscal year 2023 through 2027. Sheriff Furlong.
Hello, thank you. This action item is primarily a discussion item. We are preparing with the district attorney's office to present the 5-year plan for the 911 surcharge committee. This was just an opportunity to expose the Board of Supervisors to this action that we are working through ourselves through. The 911 surcharge committee will be meeting in, I believe, in about 2 weeks or so to discuss the plan and come back to this board with the finalized version. I believe we're targeting in the October timeframe.
For the final.
So this is an opportunity for the board to throw anything up that the surcharge committee may want to address.
So you're not looking for an action to approve these proposed revisions today?
Today, we are not asking for an approval. We're
Okay.
asking for any input that you may have had.
Does any member have anything? I just have in a general, a question that really catches my eye here. The Tiburon system the bond has been paid through our 9/11 surcharge account. Unless my tours or my knowledge is failing me here, that is coming to its useful life end. Am I correct?
The portions of the 911 surcharge do pay a bond, make a bond payment. Ms. Russell did provide me with, Ms. Russell from the finance did provide me with some details this morning. I didn't study it. I read it, I did not study it.
Problem, Sheriff, I'll help you out here. The bond comes to a close, our final payment is 6/1/24. So we could look at issuing new debt at the spring of '24 with our first payment being in the fall of, which would be '25.
Is that going to coincide and be sufficient with, where do you see, I guess that's what I'm looking
is a-
for in this master plan. What is your intention? Is it to replace the Tiburon?
Sure.
And what do you
This
see?
is a really good statement, or discussion. Portions of the 911 surcharge pay for those features within the Tiburon system that we currently operate. Tiburon's kind of an old word. Central Square is who provides us, is the vendor now. The platform that we are using is anticipated to go end of life within the next 5 years. And I say that as a generality. There is not a date set. But working with city manager, finance, and so on, we would anticipate that, I do not want to come to the board and be trying to replace a product or a vendor system before those payments to that bond are paid off. And that has been the general focus. I did speak with the mayor about this. We probably are looking at in the 5-year range. The cost of replacement for the system has not been tabulated. Reno, Sparks, Washoe, all of those agencies are currently in the process of doing it. But we have not gone to contracting to put out any requests for proposals yet. I don't anticipate doing that until after finance gives me the green light and says we're okay. It's just best that we do it that way.
So do you think in your plan, under your goals to maintain that the statement to ensure, number 4, to ensure that the technology and equipment are supporting the operations within the communications center and meeting the needs of those using the equipment embodies that it's broad enough, you don't need anything specific enough to
I don't
drive
think
it to look at the replacement in the next 5 years?
We'll work very, very closely with Fire, Public Works, main users of the system to ensure that, and the board, by the way, when we go out to request for proposals and so on, that whatever product we do hone in on provides the best services for Carson City. Obviously, our 911 center is our day-to-day emergency operations center, so it is vital to the health and safety of this community.
Thank you. Anybody else? Nope. I didn't see anything from Supervisor. Oh, go ahead. You have something else? Nope. Nothing? Just wanted to make sure. So no motions necessary. If no one has any other additions or anything,
Thank you. We will go forward with the 911 surcharge committee and then bring the final product back to the board following that.
okay. Thank you so much.
Thank
We
you.
really appreciate it. Okay, we're now on agenda item 14A, which is discussion and possible action regarding the appointment of 3 members to the Carson City Culture and Tourism Authority, 2 as representatives for the hotel or motel, and 1 as a citizen at large. So I think that on this one, we learned that Katie Bailey withdrew her application. I just want to confirm on the record. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, so based on that, we have interviewed, and all the remainders would be reappointments, and so our policy indicates if there's no new candidate, I will accept a motion for reappointments.
I'd love to do that if you'd allow me.
Supervisor Giomi.
I move to approve Mike Jones and Steve Kim to fill positions as representatives for the hotel motel operators and Bobby Rader to fill the citizen at large position, each for a 2-year term expiring in July of 2024.
I second.
I have a motion and a second for the approval of Mike Jones, Steve Kim, and Bobby Radar. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed say no. Let the record reflect the motion was passed unanimously. Thank you. Okay, we're now on to agenda item 14B, which is discussion and possible action regarding the appointment of one member to the Library Board of Trustees to fill a 4-year term that it will expire June 2026. We've also received notice that William Harris has withdrawn
That's
application.
correct.
Okay, so that leaves us Mr. Jonathan Olves. Did you want to come on up and talk to us a little bit about this? I have a feeling good things are going to happen. There you go. So generally what we do is have each member ask a question or two, and then we'll make our decisions. So I'll start with, why don't you just tell us a little bit about what you think you can bring to the library board?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Board. Let me tell you a little bit about myself and getting inundated in this community. So, I have a young family here in Carson City. We've been here since 2009. I always base that on how old my son is. So, that's how we do every date when we start getting older. So, I have an independent financial advisory firm with 3 employees. I started with New York Life. And I got inundated in this community from a past mayor, which I think most of you all know is Harold Jacobson, and many friends I have around Carson City here. I'm a past member of Noon Rotary, current and past president of Boys and Girls Club of Carson City, Carson City Leadership Class of 2014. I believe there are a few in here, best class ever. Young business professionals, then I got older and aged out. And I stay really active in youth sports with basketball and baseball. So quick shout out to all 12U All-Stars who beat Washoe last night. 2 more wins and they're going to state. So pretty excited for those guys. Just enjoy being around Carson City and wanted to find a way where I can contribute. And this popped up and so I thought I'd apply, put my application in.
What about the library board piqued your interest?
I see a gap where tweens and teens, that's kind of that area where they get lost. I mean, I have a teen right now, and I think the library can be a good place and a good resource to help funnel this age group too. I'm not positive how to do that, but I think I can work with the library staff and director to see how we can kind of help innovate the space a little more, make it a little more exciting. Kids think books and, they're like, well, I have my iPad and PlayStation and Xbox, and why do I need a book? So I think a library would be a good place to see if we can help capture some of that, in partnership with some other organizations and businesses in the area.
All right, let me try Supervisor Giomi. Are you ready?
I am. Jonathan, thank you. Appreciate you stepping up and offering to help. My question is, what are the 3 most important functions that you see the Carson City Library currently performing? And what's your assessment of how well those functions are being carried out right now?
Well, I mean, a lot of it is outreach to the community, with, obviously literacy and those sorts of things with folks. I think the age group is pretty broad. Like I say, I do see that gap there. I think the library does do a good job with their outreach in the community. I know that just from some of my clients that they like to find out ways where they can find, skilled workers and things like that to help kids, maybe that aren't fit or want to go to college, but know that there's other resources out there where they can advance careers and advance their lives and help gain financial independence. And I think the library can be a good spot for that. I think that kind of, did I answer all three of those, or is that good enough for
Yeah,
you?
that's good. Thank you, sir. Thank you. Thank you.
Supervisor White, any question?
Thank you. Well, kind of a statement first. I think we need a bigger, better, more robust library. The library's mission states that the Carson City Library supports, enhances our community's quality of life through traditional and innovative services, programs, and resources. What are you going to do to make that mission successful?
Well, I think outreach to some of the businesses and seeing how they can help enhance and help the library innovate. I agree with you. The library is a big space, nice space, but how can we make it better? Technology goes quick, as we've seen. We all know. I mean, the flip phone was not too long ago, and now we all carry computers in our pockets. So, I think moving the library forward in an innovation process and technology process is a good way to expand it and make sure that the facilities there and all the services are, able to still accommodate everybody. There's still people out there that like to go grab a book. My wife's one of them, and read those books. But with ebooks and Amazon and those sorts of things, how can we have the library promote those types of services as well, and draw in our youth with things like VR and virtual reality and those types of things, and make the library cool again, I guess, for those type of kids.
Thank
That's it.
you.
Thanks, sir.
Thank you. Supervisor Jones?
John, I appreciate your willingness to serve, come forward and serve. I've known Jonathan for a long time, and he's a great citizen of our community, and I appreciate you doing this, Jonathan.
I appreciate that.
You bet. You've kind of answered the question I was going to ask. A lot of people say we don't need libraries now because we can go online and get anything we need, and you've kind of answered that, so I'm good. Thank you, though.
Supervisor Schutte, is there any follow-up for you?
Thank you very much, and nice seeing you.
Nice seeing you. Thank you.
So, yeah, this actually just builds on the other supervisor's questions and the mayor's question. But if there's anything else you'd like to add. So mine was the face of libraries continue to change with people having more direct access to information. So what suggestions, if there are others that you haven't already spoken to, might you make to bring the library back in focus to those who don't see libraries in the same light as they once did? If there's anything you'd like to add.
Yeah, maybe part of that is focusing on it more of as a knowledge center instead of a library. We all think library because we all went to the library and did our research and opened books and did that sort of thing. So, but the kids nowadays, they have their iPads, their phones, and they have those things starting early, very, very early, and it's easy to grab information off those things. So how can we leverage that technology, but still, not forget where we came from and have books, right? And leverage those technologies so the library, knowledge center can kind of go on forever and be a great part and resource of this community.
Well, I appreciate this. And, I think of my friend Gail who, she rides her bike to the library and checks out books, and it's all part of, the process. And she has just really enjoyed the library, and it's just such a great resource for leisure. And so thank you for applying. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Okay. There's no further questions. This is going to be a hard one. I don't know. I'm ready for a motion. Supervisor Jones?
I move to appoint Jonathan Olivius for a term that will expire in June 2026.
Second.
I have a motion and a second for approval. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Let the record reflect that was a unanimous vote. Welcome to the library board.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Board. Appreciate it.
Oh, I have no doubt.
Go forth and build a bigger library.
Okay, we're going to move on then to agenda item 15A, which is discussion and possible action for the amendment to contract 213-00204 for Nicholas Consulting Engineering for an additional $1,930,458 for a total of $2,320,700 and yes, 50 cents. Is there any specific questions any member of the board has on this? We've known this was coming. Supervisor White?
I'm just curious on the electric charging stations that we're talking about installing. Who's going to pay for the electricity that charges these cars?
Thank you, Supervisor White, for the great question. Randall Rice, City Engineer, for the record. That's a great question. We actually have an EV panel that involves executive management and public works in that process. Right now, to my knowledge, we provide electricity at no charge at our stations. We do not have a point of sales system attached to the existing chargers, and that would be the continued trend moving forward with this project, unless we receive direction otherwise. But we can certainly incorporate at the board's pleasure.
It would be my intention that the consumer pays for that electricity. I find that substantially objectionable that taxpayers would pay to charge a private person's car.
Thank you for the comment.
Supervisor Schutte?
Just a comment to that, or not specifically to charges, but I think as electric vehicles and hybrid vehicles become more mainstream, I think we shouldn't forget the benefits to the community of the reduced use of fuels, the benefits to our air quality, the benefits to our health, because those also have a cost to taxpayers in terms of, medical issues and the negative effects of pollution. So I'm not arguing, but I think that it's not as cut and dry as, if we had a gas-powered vehicle, you pay for fuel. If you have an electric-powered vehicle, you should pay for the electricity, and I appreciate that, and I'm not opposed to it, but I think it's also important to keep in mind the benefits of those electric and hybrid vehicles on community health and air quality.
And if it's helpful for this board, something I will mention is most of these modern systems, they do allow for mid-year upgrades, for example. So we could start with the system that did not have a point of sale system attached to it, and we could simply make a phone call, pay the additional fees to include that point of sale system at the charger, and they could basically just flip a switch. It's all wireless, so they just send, that signal goes down to the charging station, and they can add those features to it if it's not already included. So it's not difficult to make that swap. So we're still waiting on executive management and leadership to kind of give us that guidance. Right now, the policy, as I understand it, has been not to charge, but if that changes, it is a very simple thing to incorporate. It's not monumental to make that effort change.
So let me understand something. So first of all, how many charging let's get to the subject at hand. How many charging stations are you anticipating installing?
I'll let my project manager come up if I speak differently, but I believe it's 2 dual chargers. So it'd be a total of 4 charging stations with this project. And there are a number of grants that we do anticipate going after. So essentially these chargers, for the most part, we believe to be no cost. Maybe some of the infrastructure costs with the undergrounding would supply conduit, wiring, those kinds of things. But there are plenty of grants out there that we can go after that we've already identified. So these EV chargers would not cost much, if anything, for the city.
So then secondarily, for me, I would like to make sure that we purchase the chargers that have the payment option in the beginning. We don't have to turn it on. Did I understand that correctly?
Yes, with our recent experience, that is the case. And just for a little bit of background there, it's $90 a year to have the charging stations offer essentially the Wi-Fi communication out with the general public. So when you're in your EV or if you're on your
Yeah.
phone app, it'll tell you where the nearest charging stations are. So that's very helpful. And then the second part of that is an additional $90 per year. So for a total of $180, it can include that point of sale system that allows you to charge and split. One of the vendors we're talking with currently will allow us to essentially install everything for free at no cost. And then essentially once the electricity is paid for, the city would then split whatever revenue is generated by that charging station. And that's just one option. There are numerous companies out there that are trying different avenues to make this affordable and make it come to different cities. But I get calls probably at least once a month telling us that, our city is growing. It's we have more EVs than we have chargers available. And so a number of vendors are trying to get into the city. So that's why this conversation is important and we want to get answers, at the highest levels.
So just for me, I'm not suggesting at what date we would turn on for the fee, but please make them fee accessible, I guess is the right. I think in common, we're all in agreement with that. And then we can decide at a later date when is the lever that you pull, because sometimes you want to work out glitches. You want to, like you said, there may be other issues that we do, or there may be grants that we can get that would pay for the electricity for a period of time and things like that. But for me, I really would like you to have the ability to have the consumer make the payment for it.
We'll make sure that option's
Okay.
available.
If that works. Supervisor Jones, did you have an additional comment?
Right now, the city pays for electricity. How much do we pay monthly? Does anybody know? What is our electric bill on it?
I'm sorry, I don't have that information with me.
Have that information, Sherry?
It's not isolated.
No, I looked into this about a year ago, at how much those bills went up where we put in charging stations, and it was very minimal. Very, very minimal.
Because
the
you don't have that
city-
many utilizing them yet.
The city has 2 chargers here in this parking lot, correct? Do we have any others?
I think there's one
There-
at the senior center. Where else?
I'm not aware of the senior center one, but we just installed 2 dual chargers out at the 3rd Street parking lot. It's in the northwest corner of that
Where?
parking lot. The
3rd
3rd Street
Street.
parking lot that we just redid on Curry Street.
Okay.
Yeah.
So,
It's the proliferation, right?
I don't understand why we don't charge. I truly don't. They're not paying gas tax, they're driving on our roads, et cetera. I just think we're derelict if we don't charge. I really do.
So, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think the chargers we got initially were grant funded and there was no capability to charge.
Okay, but with his new, can we?
With the new ones, yes.
Yeah. Okay, I would
Yes.
go along with you, Mayor, and say, when we get to that point, we need to start charging.
But the 2 we just put on Curry Street, are they set up to charge the consumer?
They currently are not set up to charge, but they do have the option to
They have that
charge.
capability?
Yes.
Okay.
Supervisor Giomi, did you have a comment or a question?
Yeah, both. So generally, I agree with Supervisor White and Supervisor Jones. I think perhaps the compromise between, the flat out charging and is the fact that we as a city are taking the time to put the infrastructure in to make the chargers available. So, that's sort of, in my mind, our contribution to the process. So I agree that we ought to be charging. We charge for parking downtown. So I would be in the category of saying, let's make sure they're capable and let's, get back to the creating a policy where we actually do charge. I don't think that's unreasonable at all. I do have a couple of questions about the process, about the design, though, if I could. Randy, do we have any issues on this stretch of Highway 50, similar to what we did on South Carson Street in terms of land leases or any issues like that that are going to have to get cleared up?
Great question. As far as we know, I don't believe there's any land lease issues similar to those unique parcels that we have on old NDOT right-of-way that were kind of turned over to us. The different issues that we will have here, so if you read through the proposal, there's quite a bit of background and assistance from the consultant on right-of-way acquisition, going through looking at, title reports and things like that. So this one is a little bit unique. We don't have, quite the road prism that we did at South Carson Street. And so we're working in a much more constrained environment. And so there are select areas that we've identified, at least preliminarily, that we believe will have to go through, identify, the limits of those parcels, run title reports, and then make offers to acquire, small slivers of land in order to make the design work.
And were those calculated into the overall cost of the project?
They were,
Doing
yes.
engineer's estimates?
Yes, we did have some initial assumptions on how much we thought that might be.
This part of the project or the actual, after we get done with the designing part?
In the construction budget, there was a line item that had, I forget the number offhand, but we assumed so many square feet at an estimated, value based at the current time, and then we multiplied that to come up with a number.
Okay.
And my final question is, are we in general planning on adding some of the lighted crosswalks with the flashing lights in this corridor?
Yes, so the one that we've currently identified is the crossing at State Street. We also have some proposed median islands there, so we're hoping to combine those features to make sort of a pedestrian refuge where those RFBs are planned.
Okay, yeah, that was the area I was particularly interested in, so. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. I don't see any other questions. Is there any public comment on this item? Danny?
So I do have one other question,
Sorry.
kind of back to the policy on the chargers. Is that a written approved policy, or is that just how we've been operating? If that's a written policy, I'd like to get a copy of that
It's
policy.
not a written policy. We'll have to develop a policy for charging and what the methods are and all of that. So that will come to this board.
I'd like to be involved with that process, putting that policy together.
Okay. Thank you. All right. Denny, you had a public comment?
Denny French, Carson City, Nevada, Supervisor, Mayor. You have heard my statement considering where they're putting these charging stations. And even if you get a grant or get the unit for free, you're still taking up space that would normally go to a regular parker. And my thing is that all the battle that was put out there to make sure there was 1 or 2 extra parking spaces on Carson Street, now you're wanting to take parking spaces that are dualed for the community out of lots and other areas as if it's nothing. It's no big deal because they're sort of out there. I would really like to see y'all going to the manufacturers and saying, listen, you're making a unit, a vehicle that we want to help support. We want you to come in and build them or rent property off of private properties or utilize people's parking lots of businesses and put them in. I don't think it should be our job. You talk about not wanting to be landlords. You're going to be landlords to these units. You're going to be responsible. And I think there should be fees if you are going to put them in. And I think that we should consider really putting it back on the car manufacturers and let them help by getting with the community, make the community available, say, listen, I've got a spot in my parking lot. I'd love to have you because then people are going to come and they're going to use my ice cream or they're going to have a deal in the restaurant or they're going to use the gym. But I don't think it should be the business of the city, except for on places like where the city hall is and such for their employees, for the ease and comfort and I guess just the convenience, but not in general public parking areas, not in parks, not in such. I think that those areas should be kept for general public and not 4-hour parking spots for people that have to charge their vehicles, even though it's convenient for them to use the gym or the pool or other facilities. It just doesn't set well with me. Thank you very much.
Thank you. So kind of along those lines, why is it that we feel it's important on public property to put charging stations?
I don't know that I have a great answer for that question, right? That could be debated amongst probably all of you for many hours. So I think this is the direction we were given early on in the project to move forward with these. Something I will mention is we are increasing the capacity of that parking lot by roughly 25% is the goal. And so some of those spots that will be eaten up by the EV charger stations will also have additional spots to kind of make up for those.
And those are marked that only an EV vehicle can be there, which often that means we're leaving vacant spots because there's not a car in it when the whole rest of a parking lot is full. So there's a pro and con to every decision that we make, but I'll give one for the record for a reason in my mind to have minimal public charging stations, which is the 1 or 2. So I agree not to make a parking lot full of EV charging stations. I think that's private industry's job to do that. But what I don't want to see is stranded individuals that came to enjoy a park or something. And so I think for me, that's why the 1 or 2 is okay, as long as we're going to have them pay for it. Because I have seen these vehicles that ran out by 10 minutes or something for a charge, and now they have to get a tow vehicle because there isn't anywhere to plug in. So I think having access in some of our areas to not strand people is a positive reason to do it. So for that, again, as long as the other discussion that we all had, that it's not for free based on all taxpayers, so I just want to put that on the record. For me, I'm okay with the 1 or 2 charging stations, just so we don't strand people. And we just don't have, it just hasn't caught up yet. I think that you're also correct in all of this is going to continue to evolve. I don't think we're in the perfect answer of anything yet, because technology came, but the infrastructure to support it's just not there yet, so.
So that kind of goes along with the whole idea of you should have bought gas before you headed to work, and you wouldn't be walking down the street with a gas can in your hand.
Well,
But
people run out of gas too.
all the time.
And I don't have to tow the car. I just go to the gas station with a can.
So
Right.
to partially answer your original question, why in the public space, is because that is part of the Complete Streets philosophy.
That too.
While that is part of the Complete Streets philosophy that I completely disagree with, we do have the option within all of the Complete Street manuals that I have read to make decisions based on a local circumstance. We don't have to do this.
Supervisor Schutte,
Well,
I'll come back to you in a moment.
I absolutely support balance. I don't believe it needs to be an all or nothing. And so I think a minimal amount of the charging stations with also what you spoke to, Mr. French, in terms of it is an opportunity for the manufacturers of the vehicles as well as private business to create charging stations that could in fact benefit their business. But again, as what you alluded to, I think it's a reasonable addition.
Okay. Supervisor Giomi?
Yeah, just to weigh in, I think it's kind of short-sighted of us if we don't at least do it to, by do it, I mean adding charging stations when you're at a process like this. We're not talking about putting hundreds of them out there, and I think it's a really good compromise for the reasons you talked about, but also because, it will attract people to the community, and we want people to come to our community and go to our businesses and utilize our parks and I think for the minimal investment that we're talking about, which from what I understand, sounds like it's going to be close to $0. And the fact that we charge the people for using the electricity, I think it's a good investment in infrastructure to attract people to the community. And I also agree that the infrastructure's lag behind. And I think as you see hotels get built and businesses get built, you're going to see them putting in charging stations, and that's going to be their responsibility. So I agree with that component of it, and that'll expand it also. But for us to be a good neighbor, I mean, we provide public parking spaces for the public to park. I just see this as an extension of that. So I don't think it's a tremendous burden on the community to cooperate in that way.
Okay, good. Did you want to add something, Mr. Stuckey?
If I could just offer just a little bit of clarification. Dan Stuckey, Deputy Public Works Director. So this has been a really good discussion, and obviously, as Randy mentioned, there's lots of ways to do these charging stations, and all those options are available to us. I did just want to point out that we are bound on this project as part of the RAISE grant to do at least 2. That was part of the package that we submitted. And I think the board's aware of that, but you're also aware that, we try to be very strategic in how we package together these projects. I mean, these are very highly competitive grants, so we want to package something up that can be very competitive. So we are committed to those 2, but how we structure that, we can definitely be flexible. And as Randy mentioned, we are talking about this internally on the best way to move forward on electrical charging stations across the city, and certainly we can come back and report on that to you all. So.
That's great. This agenda item is to approve the contract. So just on surface, if you want to bring back a discussion on charging stations and policy and methodologies, that can be under a new agenda item. But for this, if there isn't any further discussion on the contract content, I will accept a motion for the contract. Supervisor Schutte.
I move to approve the amendment as presented.
I have a motion and a second for approval of the contract. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Motion carried unanimously. Thank you. Thank you, staff. Interesting times. Okay, we are going to move on to agenda item 16A, which is discussion and possible action regarding a request to reallocate $150,000 of the residential construction funds from the Ross Gold Park Pavilion project to the Ross Gold Park Tennis Court Rehabilitation Project. And just for those that were listening, we did have 2 public comments this morning that are incorporated into the record from David Whitefield and Janice Caldwell in support of this agenda item. Ms. Budge, would you like to take us through how we got here?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Jennifer Budge, Parks and Recreation Director. We also had, I believe, a public comment from our Park Commission Chair that was submitted in writing yesterday before the deadline, also in support of the project. Construction costs are just through the roof right now. We have tried, this is our 3rd try to get the tennis court project moving forward. We have gone through a long process with the tennis community and with the Parks and Recreation Commission and the public to try to re-envision Ross Gold Park. It is one of the city's oldest parks, and it had really significant aging infrastructure. So we worked with the public. We did a community survey. We had a workshop. We had a lot of public feedback, and the final, reimagining of that park and the master plan, came forward in 2019 and also in 2022 to the Parks and Recreation Commission. It hasn't come to this board because we're waiting on outstanding issues with the Land and Water Conservation Fund, because it is a Land and Water Conservation Fund deed restricted property, and we have some outstanding issues related to easements that were granted in the 60s, and trying to clean that up. So I want to make sure you get a full package when we bring that master plan forward. That said, the tennis community has been very vocal. I hear from them every week, and not just the same few people. It's dozens of people really wanting playable courts in the community. We have tried several times to put this project out to bid, tried to value engineer it, which we have, to bring the project that you have forward, which is in 16B as well. And there is discussion about the pavilion. The pavilion that we took down in 2019 was very important to the community. It's a first come, first served pavilion. People would have birthday parties on the weekends. It was very well used. We did have to take it down in 2019 because I had the building official inspect it, and it was unsafe, so we immediately took it down. We have full intentions on replacing that shelter, and I think there's a number of avenues to be able to do that. We could work with Land and Water Conservation Funds. It's eligible for CDBG grants. There's a lot of funding available. Since the pavilion has been taken down, we have had, a few calls asking, where else can we go? Schultz Ranch Park has a brand new, beautiful picnic pavilion we direct people to. It's first come, first serve. John Mankins Park is another example of that, something similar. There are other options for pavilion use that are first come, first serve and free to the public in the community. There's very little places where we can direct people to go. I continually hear for tennis use. I continually hear I have to go to Douglas County, I have to go to Reno, I have to go to Sparks to have playable tennis courts. And we recognize it's a problem and we're working on it. This would be, I don't want to say an affordable solution, but a very immediate solution to be able to replace the courts at Roscoe Park. I'm working on Centennial. Nick Wentworth is with me. He's our park project manager. We're working with vendors. We have currently $660,000 available for Centennial Park, but we need about 1.7 million. So I'm working on a plan to try to get private foundations and other grants possibly to bridge that gap. But that's going to take time for me to be able to do that unless I have someone that comes forward with a wonderful, generous donation and we can make that happen. The Roscoe Park could be an immediate solution. So that's just my perspective. You've heard from, some of the park commissioners that are attesting to what they've heard from the public about the priorities for the park. It's not discounting the pavilion in any means. We have a bunch of other improvements we would like to make to the park in addition to the pavilion, but this gives us the avenue to be able to do that. If you're looking at the undesignated account, which I'm sure you're curious about, we also have another residential construction tax project that was approved in the FY23 budget for $500,000 for Blackwell's Pond playground replacement. That is a 30-year-old playground that is beyond repair. We cannot get replacement parts. We need to replace it. We've already invested in design and have that ready to go out to bid. So we really want to move on that. The estimate for that project was not only for the construction, but also based on anticipated permits pulled for new home construction. If we continue to have the trajectory and working with community development, we have adequate funding for that. But I want to be able to have that undesignated amount in case we don't have those permits that are pulled to be able to make the playground project happen. So we have a lot of moving parts related to residential construction tax. It is a very restricted fund. We can only spend it on parks of certain sizes and on certain components. So it's important that we spend that money in the proper way, and this is one of those projects.
Questions? Supervisor Jones?
Best of my knowledge, tennis people don't pay any fees to play, do they?
No, they do not.
Everybody else that plays Little League, whatever, pays a fee. Is that not true?
For organized group use, they do pay fees.
Okay.
Ball doesn't pay.
Pickleball would only pay at the MAC drop-in rates, but not at Mills Park, for example.
Okay.
They don't
Well,
pay either.
everybody pays a little bit, except tennis, right?
If you're talking about like the pavilion, they do not pay. It would be first
Well,
come,
I'm not
first
talking-
serve.
I'm talking.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Anyhow, I have a problem jumping around. I think we ought to finish Ross Gold and then go to another project myself. I think we need to add the pavilion. You said you have 600,000 towards the 1.7 million for Centennial. Why don't you take 170 you need for Ross Gold out of that and finish Ross Gold? And then worry about Centennial down the road. At least you'd have one tennis court done and you'd have the whole park done instead of piecemealing it. That's my
So you're saying, just to clarify, you're saying instead of taking the
pavilion money.
dollars from the residential construction tax, take the dollars from the Centennial Park
Right.
tennis courts, because we can't get those done anyway, and continue with the pavilion.
Right, and
So
continue and finish that
just to
part.
put that on the record, what we're saying is instead of taking the money from the undesignated, we'll take it from the tennis court project that has insufficient money
Right.
at Centennial, because those bids all came in too high, and get the tennis courts done and then continue on the path to complete the pavilion so that Roscold Park is done.
Right.
Okay? I just want to put that out and clarify what's being said there. And you did say that you wouldn't get to Centennial for years because you need 1.7
1.7 is a current,
Right.
a current quote. Obviously, that's going to probably continue to go up.
So
I
taking
can't
the
recall
150.
offhand what that 660 is from. I believe it's partially Quality of Life Capital and then partially General Fund CIP for the 660. The Quality of Life Capital likely could not be used at Roscoe Park, but the General Fund CIP could be reallocated.
It was either general fund CIP or it was ARPA. I can't remember.
It was an ARPA.
Okay, because that
yeah.
one was the pickleball half.
But it's
Okay.
over 2 fiscal years that we've created that 660.
Right.
So I just want to be clear that the Quality of Life Capital probably couldn't be used for this
I
project.
think what we're trying to tell you is that we recognize where we want to go and we want to honor the commitment to the tennis people to get 2 courts done so they can play tennis. I think I've been a part of that discussion, and I think Supervisor Giomi has too, because we're the ones that go back the time. So that's what we want to get accomplished, but we don't want to not complete the shade structure. And I think that it's always good if we can concentrate on a park and get it done. And say, okay,
Exactly,
we're going to do the
exactly.
shade structure. We did the bathrooms there already. The first thing we did was a new playground.
Right.
Right? And so I think we're really getting close to having Roscold Park completed. So that's just what we're putting out on the record. Is there a different comment or something else you wanted to add, Supervisor White, or you were in agreement? A different?
Yep.
Okay, Supervisor White?
There is no doubt that there are loud voices advocating for tennis. And indeed, we should have some public tennis courts in town. I don't believe that at this time, based on community input about what they want at Roscold Park, that now is the time to do 2 tennis courts at Roscold Park. As I have looked at numerous videos, the tennis people are advocating actually for tennis courts at Centennial Park as a cluster of courts so that they can do tournaments. I just want to point out that the idea that tennis courts are the priority at Roscoe Park simply cannot be substantiated. When you look at the survey for the master plan for Roscoe Park, question 1, should the city replace a picnic shelter at the park? 71.6% of the people said yes. Question 4, should the city install individual picnic tables throughout the park? 69.9% of the people said yes. Should the number of tennis courts be increased at the park? 77.4% of the people said no. It's pretty clear that the people that participated have a higher interest in picnicking at Roscoe Park. If you look at the Carson City Parks Master Plan, page 4.8, table 4.4, it is clear that 47.6% of the community are picnicking and only 10.9% of the people are playing tennis. If you go to page 6.3, at 6.2.2 under the needs category, shade trees, trash cans, restrooms, drinking fountains, benches, dog waste disposal stations, picnic tables, children's play equipment, all came to the top of the list as priorities in neighborhood parks. If you take a look at the Nevada statewide comprehensive outdoor recreation plan 22 to 26. Question 10 shows that Carson City residents participated in tennis and pickleball in the last 12 months at 9.41%. Question 11, Carson City residents reported picnicking in the last 12 months, 55.13%. In the background issues and analysis, it is stated here that it was reaffirmed that the tennis court was a priority through the fiscal 23 budget process. However, on April 5th of 22, the capital improvement list did not include tennis courts for Roscoe Park. So the point is, obviously, the priority at Roscoe Park should be the picnic shelters.
Thank you. Supervisor Giomi?
Yeah, I just have a couple of questions for Jen. First, Jen, you said that you didn't think that quality of life funds could be used, quality of life capital could be used for the pavilion. Why would that be?
Thank you, Supervisor Giomi. Jennifer Budge, Parks and Recreation Director. I have a copy of a legal opinion that talks about quality of life capital funds and parks that are older that were in existence prior to the Quality of Life Initiative being in place and were not listed specifically in the language can be questioned, and we'd have to get additional DA opinion on that. Quality of life maintenance is a lot more flexible because it can go toward any park. But in the quality of life language, it talked about Centennial Park, the Rifle Range, Mills Park, very specific ones. Roscoe was not listed, so I'd have to get some additional guidance on it, but I don't think it would be appropriate use of those funds.
But we have 500,000 in general fund money at Centennial that could be moved.
We have $660,000 total. I can't recall offhand. I know
Which
part of it is
sources?
from general fund CIP that
we
could
look
be
that up?
reallocated.
Can we look that up? Can we have staff take a quick look at, we want to get this motion correct. And don't want to send it, especially if we're going to fund a contract too. So Supervisor Giomi, did you have some more questions?
Yes, while we're doing that, I do have a couple of more. And as you said, Mayor, we were on the board before when we weren't able to fund all of the tennis court rehabilitation, specifically both Roscoe and Centennial for the tennis community. And I guess I don't want the board to forget that these are all investments that our community has made in the past, and to just continue to let them deteriorate without at least addressing some of them seems negligent to me. It just, I mean, to have them sit there and deteriorate beyond the ability to be used at all, we're going to reach a point where, the 1.7 million isn't even going to be enough. So I think a really good compromise, quite honestly, is, as Supervisor Jones and the mayor have lined out, let's finish Roscoe Park. Let's get it up to snuff. Let's get everything done there. And then, we can look for other ways to try and do Centennial, because I think, if we are able to do Centennial and the tennis community is able to do events, which you couldn't do on just two courts, it might also lead to additional tourism. It might lead to more people to our community, events that could generate income for our businesses. So, but obviously I think that should be down the road. So that's my 2 cents worth.
Okay, thank you. While they're continuing to look that up, Supervisor Schutte?
I just have a quick question. From the general fund, the Centennial money, if that is instead used for the tennis courts at Roscoe Park, was that money, has it been earmarked like as matching funds for a potential grant for Centennial Park, or does this if you can explain that?
Sure. It was intended to potentially be, seed money for a potential grant. It's not earmarked or identified for that as of yet. I do want to put on the record too that doing the pavilion and the courts is amazing at Roscoe. That's a great next step. It will not finish the park, so I just want to be clear that there's a lot more to do with the pond, with the turf. We have plans for turf reduction. We have some other improvements that we will seek grant funding and other alternative sources. But it is a great step in the next direction because it is very aging infrastructure.
Well, and it's certainly what the users utilize is the playground, the bathroom, the pavilion, and the tennis court, right? I mean, that's the public facing. The rest, I completely agree. There'd be some other options there. Ms. Russell, were you able to determine? Not yet. She's still working on that. Because I just think it's important that we honor our commitments when we can too. And I certainly understand actually both facets of this discussion, but I really am in support. I know what I want to put on the record. The tennis players, so it's not factual that you're indicating that they don't pay. They've had an association for numerous years where they paid all the nets, the maintenance on those courts. So they did participate, and there is currently 15,000-ish or whatever sitting in a fund that will go to help on the court. So I wanted to put that on the record that people were assuming it's kind of like the pickleball players, right? They're selling T-shirts, they're doing things to help keep the parts that the city doesn't have maintenance money for. So I just wanted to put that on the record. They have been paying for years. They haven't done anything in the recent future because, frankly, they don't have any courts. So just want to state that there's 15,000 out there for court improvements.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and I should have brought that up earlier. So the local tennis community did have leftover funds, which they gave to the local Parks Foundation, which is wonderful. Some of that money just went toward a geotechnical investigation, which is needed before we do design at Centennial, because they're all in. They want to have those Centennial courts. So while it wasn't a ton of money, it was a huge impact to the next step in making Centennial courts a reality. So they did fund entirely that geotechnical investigation for soils at Centennial in anticipation of redoing those courts.
And I think in fairness, on the questionnaire that Supervisor White was referring to, the question was not on should we repair the tennis court. The question is, should we expand the tennis court? And that didn't win over the replacement of the sinking pavilion, because that was pretty bad. So I just want to
You're correct.
clarify.
It did not talk about repairing the tennis courts. It talked about expanding.
Right.
My point is, the people that participated, their interest was in picnicking, not tennis.
I just got confirmation that 330,000 of those funds is from general fund
That's what I
CIP.
thought. Okay, so we could do as suggested, and move the money from the Centennial CIP so that we can keep the shelter. Because I think that, unless I'm missing the step here, I think that's what we were all aiming at, is keeping the picnic shelter going, right? Unless I missed anything?
If the intention is
Okay.
to go forward with the
Picnic
picnic
shelter.
shelter, let's do it. But I'm not willing to sacrifice the picnic shelter.
Okay. So is there any, and for the record, I want to put in that, thank you, Leah Case, Jean Ketchley, and Eldon Wilson did also put in public comment and support that came in via the online public comment. So I did want to put that on the record. Do I have any other public comment? Come on up. Please state your name for the record.
Hi, my name is Brenda Hunt. I'm a Carson City resident and a mother of a 15-year-old youth tennis player who aspires to play tennis at the college level. I wanted to thank Jennifer and Nick and Lori and Mr. Giomi for helping, try to move forward with Centennial and Roscoe Parks. The tennis community has been waiting and waiting, and it's never seems like it's the right time. And so I just want to put on record that it has to be the right time sometime. And the reason that maybe those survey results are the way they are is because we haven't had playable surfaces, so no youth players have come up to play. Our Carson City high school team doesn't have a feeder. There's they learn when they're 14 and 15 years old. My son is 15. He currently works at the Reno Tennis Center. I just drove him to work. I work full-time. I just drove him to work at the Reno Tennis Center because he's teaching 3-year-old to 15-year-old kids how to play tennis. I would prefer that he would be doing that in the Carson City community, not the Reno community. But I'm stuck because there isn't any courts here and there's nowhere to play. I mean, he barely can even practice on the courts that are existing in this town right now. This is our capital city. We really would really love to have playable surfaces here. Your idea of kind of stealing from Peter to pay for Paul, it sounds great on the surface, but that means that Centennial Park now is going to even wait even longer. I mean, he had started playing at Centennial at a camp that the Carson City Tennis Club used to run. So when he was 9, and he has loved the sport and excelled. There were many kids who were out there. The courts can't even support that right now. They can't support a camp. The Carson City Tennis Club went defunct because they can't have members paying for courts that are unplayable. And it's just this constant cycle of it's never the right time because it's expensive and it's going to be expensive and expensive. So anyway, I know my time is running out, but I do want to say that, my family has benefited from this wonderful sport. Having public courts is essential, having access to public courts, because I'm sure you're all aware that tennis, if you don't have access, you can't play. If a regular kid, you have to be a member of a club, and that is really expensive. So having our local community have a club is really critical. It is critical to have these 2 courts in particular fixed. All the courts need to be fixed, and having at least 2 would be wonderful. My main goal is Centennial, I will have to say.
We recognize that. Thank you so very much for your public comment. We appreciate it. I wish there was magic that we had enough to do the Roscoe Parks and the Centennial Parks, but the reality is at this moment in time, we don't. So we're trying the best that we can to try and get you 2, and then we'll work hard to backfill a lot more than the $150,000 we're going to have to take from the Centennial tennis courts. But we have to balance the pavilion too, right? Because it's not just about tennis. It's about the whole community's needs. And so we're
Can I
really
make
in a
one-
pickle here trying to get it done. And I'm sorry, no more public comment. I'm like 3 minutes. I'm sorry.
There's lots.
Well, that's why we're trying to get you 2. That's why we're trying hard. We're going to get you 2 today. It's a start, right? To get some tennis playing. So is there anyone else? Come on. Hi.
Oh, okay. Thank you. My name is Lori Gunton, and I've been playing tennis in this town for as long as I've lived here. And I have seen the courts gradually, and they're just unplayable. We have to go to the lake. We have to go to Johnson Lane to play. And I know there is interest out there because I know I've been out there a lot of times, and people come and they leave because the courts are just unplayable. And, and I was here, I was a member of the tennis club, Carson City Tennis Club, and paid my dues. And I've just seen it go away. And I do believe there is a lot of interest. And, I'm here to advocate for it. Tennis is alive and well, and we'd like to see it. It's a great sport, and we'd love to see, at least, some courts get repaired.
Thank you.
Would be great.
Thank
So
you.
I'm advocating.
We're going to give it a try today.
Thank
Gonna
you.
Give it a try. Okay. Is
Thank
there
you
any
for listening.
other public comment? Okay, seeing none. So the objective then potentially is to move approval of this request with the money coming from the Centennial Park
General fund.
General
CIP.
Fund
CIP.
CIP. And then we would continue on so that it's clear we're then continuing on with the shade structure. So
Right.
that's the whole, right? Is that Supervisor Jones's motion? Is to approve this with the change for funding to be from the Centennial Park General Fund allocation?
Right, and retain the original amount for the pavilion.
Mhm.
Right.
Right.
I so move, yes.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further questions? All, what, are you trying to vote yes?
Or it's not a question, but I have a comment. Would that be after?
I'll say on discussion then. On discussion, Supervisor Shute?
I appreciate all of the comments, and I will support this. I think, though, that it is really important that we make Centennial Courts a priority in future discussions and future budgeting. There were some really important comments brought up, just the whole idea of tennis courts, as community feeders for kids' recreation and then adult play. I think the idea, when we talk about culture and tourism and heads in beds, there is such a benefit to a community when there are different recreational opportunities. And so I really would like to see us give a priority now to the tennis courts in future discussions and budgeting.
Thank you. I certainly don't think anyone on this board is recommending that Centennial Park be abandoned. But a $1.7 million price tag probably sent me over the back end of my chair. It's like, whoops, what happened there? We started off thinking it was going to be sufficient money to get both accomplished. And so we're just not in that reality, but I certainly agree that Centennial Park is also important to the overall processes. So is there any other on discussion? Okay, all those in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed, say no. Let the record reflect the motion was unanimous. Thank you. Thank you very much, which lets us then go forward on 16B because 16A passed. So now we have sufficient money to approve the contract. Just note that the funding source will be updated pursuant to the last discussion. So other than that, is there any questions on the contract? If not, I'll accept a motion.
Move to award the contract as presented.
Any?
Second.
Okay, I'll just ask one time, just in case there was public comment. I think everything was on 16A and B, but I thought, whoops, I better double check. Okay, so all those in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed, say no. Motion carried unanimously. Thank you, and gosh, hurry up before the vendor changes his mind. That's what I have to say, so that we can get the courts. Okay, we're now on to item 17A, which I'll do my disclosure first. 17A is discussion and possible action regarding recommendations for the City Audit Committee to approve the completed remediation plans. NRS 281A 420 requires me to disclose a conflict of interest and abstain from voting when I have a disqualifying conflict. My son is a partner at Eide Bailey. I have previously abstained from voting on the award of contract to Eide Bailey as the city's internal auditor because I believe that the independence of judgment of a reasonable person in my position could be materially affected by my relationship with my son. Here, however, the contract has already been awarded. My son does not have any direct involvement in this audit, and the item before us now only involves procedural actions in considering the audit committee's recommendations for the closure of items where remediation was validated by Eide Bailey. I make this disclosure in the interest of full transparency, but because taking action on this matter is a routine function and does not materially affect the independence of my judgment, and also because NRS 281A.420 requires abstention only in clear cases. I do not have a disqualifying conflict and will be voting on this matter. So with that, we have with us Sherry Russell. Would you give us a brief overview on this one?
Yes, thank you. So I have a slight correction on this one. Basically, this is the audit committee, and they periodically throughout the year close findings and recommendations from our internal auditor. I jumped the gun a little bit on the IT volatility audit. That one, I gave an update at the last meeting, and the internal auditor still had to validate those procedures, so it was not closed. So we only want to recommend closure. The audit committee only recommended closure on the fleet management audit and the payroll audit.
Thank you. Does anyone have any questions on the fleet management or the payroll internal audit recommendations? Okay. I will accept a motion for final closure of the fleet management and payroll internal audits as recommended by the audit committee.
So moved.
Okay. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed, say no. Motion carried. Thank you. Thank you. And congratulations on the record. Happy marriage and have a happy life. Thought I'd just do that, right? We don't get a lot of time to celebrate, but we want to do that one. Okay. We're now going to move on to agenda item 17B, which is discussion and possible action regarding additional funding requests from the Community Development Block Grant for Colorado Street ADA compliance. Ms. Schutte, may I please have your disclosure?
Yes, you may. NRS 281A.420 requires me to disclose a conflict and abstain from voting when I have a disqualifying conflict. This agenda item is to consider an additional funding request from the Carson City Department of Public Works, which was submitted by Chris Martinovich, the city's transportation manager. Chris is my nephew. While I do have a familial relationship with Chris, this agenda item concerns the broader purpose of taking action on a CDBG allocation. The recommended funding for the Public Works Department pertains to ADA improvements on city property, and there is nothing specifically related to the position of transportation manager or to Chris in his personal capacity, where the funding affects him more or less than any other person employed by or residing in Carson City. Additionally, Nevada's ethics law give appropriate deference to the public policy of this state, which favors the right of a public official to perform the duties for which the public official was elected or appointed and to vote, because abstention disrupts the normal course of representative government. Since abstention is only required in clear cases where the independence of judgment of a reasonable person in my situation would be materially affected, and I do not believe that to be the case because this agenda matter has no specific relation to Chris other than the fact that he made an application submittal on behalf of Public Works as the city's transportation manager. I make this disclosure for full transparency, but will be voting.
Thank you so much. Okay, Mariana, do you want to give us just a brief overview? I think this one's pretty clear cut.
Yep. Good morning, everyone. For the record, my name is Mirjana Gavric, Carson City Grants Administrator. This submission is to discuss and approve the request for additional funding for the FY 2022 Carson City, Colorado Street ADA Compliance Improvement Project. Carson City Public Works is requesting additional CDBG funding in the amount of $102,600. The request has been received and recommended by the original application review work group and is subject to approval from the Carson City Board of Supervisors. Now, do you guys have any questions?
Anybody have any questions on this project? I think Supervisor White has his hand, so I'll do that too. But I think this is just another one like the last one with the tennis courts and everything else we're seeing. Price bumps everywhere and everything that we're doing, but just the fact of life. That's where we are right now. Supervisor White, you have a question?
So I've been under the impression that the restrooms at Roscoe Park have been completed. However, this talks about deobligated amount of CBDG for that ADA restroom at Roscoe Park. Where does this money come from? Aren't
Sure.
those restrooms completed?
Those restrooms are
Yeah,
completed, and that's
less. Came in cheaper.
Yes, exactly, thank you. So that project actually was completed June 30th of last year, so of 2021, and it came in under budget, and that was before the recession, or not the recession, excuse me, the inflation hit, and therefore they actually came in under budget. So there was a little bit of savings there that they deobligated back into the CDBG pot.
Thank you. I just wanted to get that on the
Sure.
record since somebody created quite a commotion about not sacrificing Roscoe Park projects a few minutes ago.
We didn't. We didn't.
Thank you.
Okay. Is there any public comment on this item? Seeing none, I'll accept a motion. Supervisor Jones?
I move to approve the additional funding requested as requested.
Second.
I have a motion and a second for approval. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any
Aye.
aye. Any opposed, say no. Motion carried unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we're now on to agenda item 18A, which is discussion and possible action regarding a proposed acceptance of a grant from the state not to exceed $103,499. I have Nikki Aker here today. You want to give us a brief synopsis on this one?
Sure. Nikki Aker, Director of Carson City Health and Human Services, for the record. So this is a recurring grant from the state for maternal child health. It does pay for staff, and it was brought to the board at this time to get possible acceptance of the grant. I have had discussions with Supervisor White, and he had some concerns with some of the materials that were asked to be training materials. We do have many options, and we will look at those other options.
Okay, does anyone else have any, Supervisor White has a question, a motion, or a comment?
I just want to thank staff for entertaining my consternation in regards to those materials and working out how we're going to move forward with this particular grant. And if there's no other questions, I'm ready to make a motion.
Let me ask, is there any public comment on this item? Seeing none, I'll accept a motion.
I move to authorize acceptance of the grant as presented.
And I'll second.
Okay, all those in favor, please say aye.
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 Okay, motion carried unanimously. Thank you. We'll move on to agenda item 18B, discussion and possible action regarding the proposed submittal of a grant application for WIC services. Has this been loaded up for late material and has been placed on the back? Just want to, right, for people to be able to read the application, and we were given it as late material. I just want to make sure all the legal stuff occurred. Yes? Okay. Thank you. Does anyone have any questions on this particular application? Is there any public comment on it? It's okay, Denny. Go ahead.
Thank you. I was honored, Mayor and Board, Denny French, Carson City. I was honored to be able to work with Ronwood Family Facility as a volunteer and part of the WIC program. My part of that was maintenance of the breast pumps. And so it's quite a meticulous type situation. The manufacturer makes them with very lot of nooks and crannies. And this, and it was meticulous work, but I'm a little OCD and it worked well with my personality. So that went well. But I want to support anything that's supportive of that program. It makes such a difference to the community. While I'm not a volunteer at that such now, I saw so many people benefit from it. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay. Seeing no further, I'll accept a motion for approval.
I move to approve submittal of the grant application.
In honor of Denny's work, I will second that motion.
Thank you. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. And
Aye.
any opposed, say no. Let the record reflect that was unanimous. Thank you so much. Okay, we are going to recess as the Board of Supervisors and take a small break because it's time. And then we'll come back as the Redevelopment Authority. So we're in recess. Redevelopment Authority to order. May I have a roll call, please?
Chair Bagwell,
Here.
Vice Chair Giomi,
Here.
Member Jones, Member Shooty,
Here.
Member White. A quorum's present.
Thank you so much. Is there any public comment in general? Don't see any on this signed up or done, so we'll move on to agenda item 22, approval of our minutes of May 19th. Did anyone have any corrections? I'll accept a motion for the approval of the May 19th, 2022 minutes. I have a motion and a second for approval. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any
Aye.
opposed, say no. Let the record reflect the motion was unanimous. We're now on to agenda item 23A, discussion and possible action concerning a recommendation that the redevelopment authority needs to make to the Board of Supervisors regarding the expenditure of $50,000 for fiscal year 23's redevelopment revolving fund for our arts and culture events and projects. I don't see Miss Sullivan, but I also see Miss Paulson's name on here, so you're up.
Yes, I'm going to go through it. So the Carson City Cultural Commission received a total of $66,000 in grant requests and approved recommending to the to the Redevelopment Authority 9 projects for a total of $50,000. Pursuant to the grant guidelines, up to $10,000 was available for new arts and culture projects or events, and up to $5,000 for projects or events that have previously received funding. In addition, those that have previously received funding, those would require 50% cash match. A summary of the recommended funding was included in your packet. One thing I wanted to note is that $8,000 is shown as being allocated to the Brewery Arts Center Rock and Roll exhibition when only $5,000 was requested. We didn't catch this during the meeting, and when the motion was approved, it was approved for the $8,000. So staff is recommending reducing that funding to the Brewery Arts Center Rock and Roll project to $5,000. And the chair of the Cultural Commission, Barbara Dineo, is here if you have any questions for her.
I see a hand up with Supervisor Shooty.
Hello. Yeah, I just have some other numbers I would like to recommend for the award. So for the Brewery Arts Rock and Roll exhibition, yes, take it to the 5. I'd like to recommend that Capital City Arts Initiative would get 3.5. Carson City Symphony would get 4. And the Mile High Jazz Band 4.5. So it, and how I got those numbers, so Capital City Arts Initiative, they had requested 5,000, it was recommended 3, so to add another 500 there. Carson City Symphony had requested 5,000, it was recommended 2, so to add 2,000 to that, to take it to 4. And then Mile High Jazz Band had requested 5. It was recommended 4, so to take it to 4.5.
And who would we take away from?
Let's, Barbara, that won't be necessary for you to respond at this point.
Okay.
Supervisor Giomi, if you didn't hear, the takeaway is from Brewery Arts Center Rock and Roll exhibition. The error was 8,000. It should have been 5.
I got it.
Okay.
I got it now. I had those backwards on my notes. I got it. Thank you.
Okay. Just for clarification's sakes, but before we respond to Lisa's suggestions or thoughts, I wanted to throw out on the record something too that we may have overlooked during our initial budget discussions and everything dealing with this. If you recall, we also authorized a position in the Parks and Rec, but we didn't leave it any supply or money to do any activities. So I want to throw out that since the Arts and Culture Board worked hard and was following our other directions to reduce the ongoing ones that got money all the time. And I think they were looking to start phasing them out because we want to do more for the new. I also think we should consider leaving the 3,000 for our position to have some money to maybe put together an activity or something this year. I hate for that position to have nothing to work with for a whole year. So I just don't think we have to allocate the 3,000. I think we could leave it in the account and let it come backwards to the arts and culture if something
I
develops.
totally agree with that, yeah.
Okay. So I just wanted to throw that out. Not that
on
I appreciate what Lisa
clarification-
was doing, but I don't think she remembered we didn't have any money for the position. I was like, whoops, I think we boo-booed a little bit there.
But clarifying, the board established that if you had been a recipient for X number of years, your amount you requested was reduced.
Right.
That was by board decision.
Yeah.
So, go ahead, Barb.
Supervisor Jones?
Okay.
Yeah.
And then you
Barbara
can-
Dineo, for the record, Chair of the Cultural Commission. That was a very interesting meeting that we had this last round, and Stan is absolutely correct. It's a sliding scale now for those organizations who have come yearly. And that was not the initial or the ongoing purpose for the RAC grants. And so I know it made some kind of surprised, but I think Deborah Soul did a wonderful job in putting together the matrix for us to do our grading and to be looking at who got what, when, and for how many years. And so that's why there is a sliding event going on here. And we were very pleased. It was a very long meeting, but we were very pleased to get new artistic endeavors before the Cultural Commission. So thank you for that, and thank you for granting the 50, and we look forward to working with you all in the future.
Well, and thank you for the clarification, and I love that's why it's great to discuss it on the record, because there is the behind the scenes discussions, and so thank you.
Supervisor White, you took your hand down. Did you
Barbara answered my
answer the question?
Yes.
Okay. So, I'll just, in case there's only Denny left, but any public comment on this item, just in case? Okay. So really, the discussion is whether we want to reallocate or leave the $3,000 when we reduce the rock and roll exhibition for the new employee in time to let that come to fruition. So what is the pleasure on the board? Stan?
Well, I think it's a great suggestion. We got to have seed money for the new person.
Right.
Hopefully, they're going to come up with a project or a plan. So I would suggest that we do keep
Leave
that
it?
3,000 for the new position.
Okay, I like that too. I just don't think we always have to allocate everything on the first round.
Right.
Sometimes leaving yourself a little bit in case something comes up, and like you said, we get a dynamic person in there that goes, gosh, 2,000-3,000, watch what we can do.
Yeah.
So, Supervisor Jones or White, is that a motion?
No,
Oh, White?
something that just came to my mind. We're talking about this sliding scale, eventually removing these grants. So, for instance, with Brewery Arts Center, I don't think they got a grant for their Snoopy exhibition, but now they have a grant for the rock and roll exhibition. Will these revolving installations receive this sliding scale down, or will each one of these be viewed as a brand new ask?
I think that's something the Arts and Cultural Commission will have to decide in their overall policy as to whether they consider that
Yeah.
brand new, or like you said, is that also,
Right.
like Miss Lopez just because it's a new
Right.
one, because so the Mile High Jazz Band doesn't put on the same music every year,
Right,
same thing. So
So I think you guys better need to get
to
together.
think about
Yeah.
that.
Make a policy on that.
Yeah, and that, Barbara, again, for the record, that's the conundrum that we have been facing for a long time. And every single grant request is extremely individual. Many of them are happening at the Brewery Arts Center, which makes it even more difficult. But it depends on what the grant request is for. So we are looking at what do we do? We have an art policy coming up for lots of discussion, and I have asked Ms. Soul at this next meeting to have an initial understanding and a reiteration of what the master plan is about, why the Cultural Commission needs to exist, the rationale for it in terms of fundraising, et cetera, and to clarify so that everyone on the commission, and there are 2 new members, understands exactly what we are doing. So there is a sliding scale, and that's the way it is. It's the way we agreed to do it because we've had too many, too often, too long. Does that answer your question?
Okay. City manager, you?
Yeah, I just wanted to add for Supervisor White that that's why they requested the 5,000, because under the guidelines, they can request up to 5,000 for recurring events, and that includes recurring projects or events of a similar nature, such as a different theatrical production by the same theater company, or in this case, a different exhibition from the same nonprofit.
That's why there was 5,000 on all those other ones. Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
Thank you. Supervisor Jones, you had your.
Well, I just would like to expand. I really struggled with this because for years, the jazz, the Nutcracker was our arts and culture.
That's all we
period.
had.
So I didn't want to kick them and, just say you're gone. But I agree, we have to do this recurringly. But I want to respect those people that have been around and continue to do their thing.
Right.
That was.
Okay.
Exactly, yeah.
And at some point, when we begin to get NEA grants and begin to be funded with larger sums of money, we can revisit exactly what is going. We will update this probably every 3 years in terms of, is this still justified? Are we still in the same position?
Perfect. Thank you. So for this item, then, the motion for recommend to the board approval of the expenditures as recommended by the Cultural Commission, with the exception of the Brewery Arts Center Rock and Roll exhibition, will be funded at 5,000.
So moved.
Well, that leaves the 3,000. All we're doing is putting it at 5. Okay.
So moved.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed, say no. Motion carried unanimously. Thank you and your team for your good work. I know and I do want to go on the record as Supervisor Jones too, to just, especially today, we were all commenting. So if Sharon's listening from Capital City Arts, we want to thank you so very much for our display of art today in here. It's, I think, one of my favorite.
And may I add for that, because I've also heard from members here during the break, they would like to know the location of some of these pictures.
Yes.
Because people are interested in purchase, but they don't say where they were done.
Right.
So we'd like that.
I hope Sharon is
We're
listening.
fairly recognizable.
Some are, but there's a couple that are like, but very, very nice artwork. So again, and the Mile High Jazz Band and everyone, we thank you so very much. Thank you, Barbara. Okay, we're on to agenda item 24, which is any final public comment for the Redevelopment Authority. Okay, seeing none, then we will adjourn as the redevelopment authority and will reconvene as the Board of Supervisors. Okay, we're on to agenda item 27A, which is the authorizing of the action that we just did. Please let the record reflect the item from the redevelopment authority. We have, yeah, right. The resolution will be modified to reflect, again, 5,000 for the Brewery Arts Center Rock and Roll Exhibition. That's what will be modified in the resolution. Do I have any further? I see ready. Supervisor White for a motion?
I am. I move to approve resolution number 2022-R-25 with the adjustment of Brewery Arts Center Rock and Roll Exhibition to $5,000.
I second.
I have a motion and a second. All of those in favor, please say aye.
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 Let the record reflect that the 2/3 required vote has been met. Okay, we will now move on to agenda item 28, which is our non-action items. Just to reiterate, July 16th at 10 a.m. at Mayor's Park. Come out with your kids and enjoy with us and celebrate. July is National Parks Month and the new signage and benches and things that Mayor Maseko, 10 a.m. that Mayor Maseko did there. The park looks really nice. So
Saturday?
Saturday, July 16th at 10 a.m. Please come out and enjoy that with us and do the unveiling of the new signage there. Okay, Miss Paulson, do we have anything here?
The only thing is maybe to let people know that unfortunately we weren't able to do the fireworks, or RSVP wasn't able to do the fireworks on July 4th. So they are going to try again on Saturday between 9 and 9:15, weather permitting.
Oh, I thought it was 9:15, 9:30.
All right.
Weather permitting,
Yeah. Somewhere in that ballpark.
Yeah, there you go. Well, yeah, it has to be dark. There's a truth to that. It does have to be dark. Supervisor Schutte, did you have something to share?
Yeah, just a couple shout outs. Shout out to the Park and Rec. They do these great community kind of field trips or activities, and they have the guided snowshoe in the winter and the moonlight hikes, and they also have kayak outings. And so I joined a kayak outing, and wow, we had so much fun. So you load up the van and it was full, and off to Donner we went and kayaked around and just had a ball. And it is just such a wonderful community opportunity. And so each participant, we paid $30, and so that provided the ride and use of the kayak, and it was really fun. So great service, great opportunity, and that's kind of what a great Parks and Rec is all about. So kudos. And then another kudos, the fire department, the grant they have for the fire fuel abatement dumpsters and trailers. In light of the dry conditions and fire risk, and there are quite a few single-family 1-acre parcels in this community. There's a lot of fuel, and I just really appreciate it, that opportunity for community members to pull out the sagebrush and juniper and all of that. It benefits everybody to reduce the fuels. And so it is a glorious and useful and potentially life-saving grant. And so a shout out to that team as well.
Perfect. Supervisor Giomi.
Yeah, I just wanted to thank the board's indulgence in allowing me to be on video today. I took a great vacation to Yukon Territory and Southeast Alaska and came back with a lot of great memories, but I also came back with my second round of COVID. So did not want to expose anyone there to that. So I appreciate your indulgence.
Well, you showed us we could do it. If we had to, we can do it. So thank you for participating. I also just want to do a fun discussion. I look forward to this afternoon selecting the two. I know that's going to be fun. The new pets that will be featured on our Humane Society trucks. I already saw a bunch of them posted on Facebook, and I'm not sure how I'm going to limit myself to 2 because everything was cute. I mean, it was all just cute, but I look forward to doing that and participating with the Humane Society for the final 2. So I'll do that this afternoon. And
Can I add a comment to that? You know, it's another opportunity when we talk about community involvement. You know, the truck that is being rewrapped, at least the large one, that is something that Cassie donated in 2018, and they had it custom built, donated it to the city for the use by NHS. And you know, the community just really came together and continues to come together to support animals in need. And these animals in need, many of them have families who love them. And a lot of the animals that NHS, if they go out on a lost animal or running at large or whatever, you know, it might be a broken fence. It might be somebody inadvertently left a door open, and then Fido gets out and runs about. And the animal control officers are great about taking the critters back home. It's not just about sending them to the critter hooskow. So it was just another opportunity for community involvement. So thanks for letting me.
the community was doing a good
Yes.
job on Facebook with their, I don't know, sometimes I think people like their pets better than other people, but they were doggone cute. That's all I have to say. They were cute. So is there any other announcements or anything that we're missing? Okay, seeing none, then we'll go on to our final public comment. Yes, Denny?
Thank you, and I guess it starts again with mayor and supervisors. Thank you very much. One of the observations through this days of meeting is the appreciation for everybody's efforts, always for me. I appreciate it. One of the things that I picked up and sort of got stuck in my head was the park, the Centennial Park situation with the courts. To me, it's a maintenance deal, and every time you build something, you have to maintain it. And it seems to me that there's a little loss of understanding of how fragile tennis courts are. New materials are allowing them to last longer. Tennis is outdoors. It's on asphalt most of the time. And the combinations of paints and such have changed, and the nettings and such. But really, anytime you put something out there, if the city's not taking care of it, shame on us. It should never get to a point where you have to redo a whole area. The maintenance should be done as it's needed, and it should be a deal where you've got certain funds available, because it's a big shock to have $1 million bill facing you. And I think that these type of things should be considered a little bit sooner than have it come up to this point. But I am not a tennis player. But I've been work with a city that had tennis courts and such. I'd like to see more at the schools. I'd like to see those type of things added to that curriculum, but that's a school board situation. Thank you. Is there, you had?
So that's why we've created the Asset Management Proprietary Fund.
I do, but
to address that very situation.
I appreciate that. It's just not at the point where you've got ability to take care of it all right now.
20 years of neglect, and we're not going to catch up 20 years into.
Well,
But this
perhaps,
board, well, actually, in due credit, a board before this one actually already took that action. So I worked on the funding, the mechanism, and Supervisor Bonkowski, Supervisor Giomi, even before this, and I'm very proud of this board for continuing that funding and that philosophy. But again,
I'm not
you can't
suggesting.
catch it up. You just don't
I'm
do it,
not
Denny.
suggesting
Right.
that you haven't been diligent in what
Right.
you've done. I'm saying at this point, you're sort of behind the 8 ball.
Yes, we are.
So, well, I
We
don't
are.
want to, I don't want to be over.
Thank you.
But and you all are, so I commend you in that. I just want to suggest, they are creatures of their own uniqueness, and tennis courts do take a little bit different consideration. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay. No other public comment? Then no objections. We're adjourned. As always, thanks for a great meeting, everyone.